And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode 27. Well, you'll notice I'm not exactly where I usually am. You don't see that great picture on the wall with the Aerostar on it. And instead, I am lying in a bed. That's because I am on a vacation, but it's the type of vacation where you work 10 hours a day. I am painting remotely. And on a beautiful lake in the Adirondacks, I may add. So no complaints here. But the show must go on. So we have a very special edition of Year of the Aerostar. And boy, what an Aerostar to bring you. We have, as you can see, my very crisp white shirt here. And it should come as no surprise then that we have a very crisp white Aerostar. This is a 1997 Ford Aerostar XLT 70,442 original miles. That is the entire headline of the description. This is a dealership vehicle, not a private seller, and it was listed in Cream Ridge, New Jersey. Wow. I always love these listings because you'll hear of these little towns and municipalities that you've never ever heard of, such as Cream Ridge, New Jersey. And I just like that there's so many places in the world and so many places that an Aerostar is, just lingering about in, waiting to be discovered. This van is listed for $5,500. Pretty high up on the Aerostar ladder. I'd say it's actually kind of right in the middle because Aerostars you're seeing top out at, $9,000, $10,000 unless there's some crazy conversion van, in which case sometimes those overlanding vehicles go for even more in some cases. So $5,500 is kind of right in the middle. And for that sum of money, you can get quite a bit of Aerostar. Seller's description: 1997 Ford Aerostar XLT, 70,442 original miles. We have the VIN number, we have the engine. Now it's a 3-liter, and we can obviously see here it's the extended model, so we can rule out right away that it's we can rule out right away the idea that it is an all-wheel drive Aerostar. I am, searching for that fabled all-wheel drive Aerostar because all all-wheel drive Aerostars, as we learned, had the 4-cylinder motor. So being a 4-liter, 6-cylinder motor. So being the 3-liter, we know it's rear-wheel drive, transmission auto, exterior white, interior gray, body style, van. Okay. Body style is simply Aerostar, I would say, because is it a truck? Is it a van? Is it a car? It's an Aerostar. Boy, that's very similar to, is it a bird? Is it a plane? It's Superman, isn't it? This one-owner Aerostar comes to our lot in New Jersey, equipped with automatic transmission, cruise control, power brakes, power windows, power door locks, power mirror, AM, FM, and front and rear air conditioning. Front and rear. The paint looks original with absolutely no rust anywhere on the car. Full service was performed on this beauty. Thank you for calling it a beauty. I really appreciate that. Fluids along with filters have been changed. A couple great things to note. First of all, this one-owner Aerostar comes to our lot in New Jersey. Not comes to our dealership, comes to us, comes to our business, comes to our lot in New Jersey. They're really selling it. Nowhere I'd rather be than a lot in New Jersey. Joking aside, I actually happen to love New Jersey. I have some good friends from New Jersey, and very underrated state. I'm not just saying that to pander. I do like New Jersey. George Carlin has a great special called What Am I Doing in New Jersey? So again, neither here nor there. But a lot in New Jersey does not exactly always connote the finest things. But of course, the Aerostar is one of the finest things. So, maybe the exception proves the rule. The paint looks original with absolutely no rust anywhere on the car. Well, I can vouch for that. I mean, it does certainly look stunning here. Although when you say original, it's funny because one thing we'll clearly notice here is these all white bumpers. And I've always talked about the painted bumpers on the Aerostar, body colored painted bumpers. I do happen to love them. I think they look great. And I think they look great specifically in white. when you see these rear bumpers carry with the color of the body, the continuity all the way around, it really just takes the design and the ethos of the Aerostar to a whole new level, in my opinion. Now this is the one that really gets me. Full service was performed on this beauty. Fluids along with filters have been changed. So I guess that in and of itself is what they are calling a full service. In this case, a full service means that the fluid along with filters have been changed. I guess that means it's in great condition, but certainly a service on a 1997 vehicle oftentimes would have such things as maybe some brakes, maybe some other things, but a full service was performed. Fluids along with filter have been changed. So there's your description. Unfortunately, there's only 2 pictures, but at least we get pretty much every angle of the vehicle in these 2 pictures. Now, one thing I will say about the Aerostar, and in car photos in general, if you go on Bring a Trailer, any of those sites, oftentimes you'll see, I've photographed some cars in my day, selling them and just for leisure. And this is taken obviously with some sort of zoomed or telephoto lens. The body is not distorted in any way. When you take even a normal iPhone on its normal setting, it's somewhat wide. So if you go up right to the front of the car, you'll see that everything has this little bit of not quite fisheye, but a little bit of distortion going on. This is more of a telephoto shot where the depth of field is very narrow, I believe is the correct one. So in nature photography and stuff like that, you'll see a lot of times with telephoto lenses. So the background looks very flat, and everything sort of, compacts in on itself. Don't sound like much of a photographer, I know when I'm talking. But the total product of all these ramblings is to say that it shows off the lines on the Aerostar very well. If you look from all the way in the front hood here to the back, it only appears to take up a very small amount of space, whereas we know, especially being extended, this is a very long van. But I think what it does is it really highlights the angularity and the lines on the Aerostar. I'm always talking about this one line here that runs down the entire side of the van and then swoops down and meets your hood line. So even though the Aerostar is made up largely of flat panels, you do have one very prominent curve in the Aerostar. It's not totally angular. It does have this beautiful sweeping curve in this body line that really, really ties everything together. I think it's a fantastic body line, and it's presented very, very well in this photo. Jay Leno famously always talks about how white is the color by which you measure a design. If you can't gussy it up or fake it or hide it with all these crazy neon colors, white is like sort of the color by which you measure a car's design. And I think that, along with the photography here, really rings true, because even though this is not a two-tone van, you can see why Aerostars were so ripe for a two-tone paint scheme, because not only these lines sort of articulate some design, but you can see with the shadows and the highlights just how raised and indented respectively that they are. So this whole panel here going down the middle of your vehicle is really raised. It sticks out, it protrudes, and then it kind of goes down, and then it kind of not protrudes again, but this is a deeper crease here on your secondary line, and you just see how this whole panel is actually one raised piece. Obviously, it has the door gaps and everything in it, but it's one continuous line, and I think that just really shows through in these pictures, and it's very, very beautiful. So I wanted to highlight that. Okay, let's look at, and I really appreciate they turned the lights on in this photo too. Something about it just gives it this sense of life and vibrancy that I really, really like. Now, again, I've mentioned some people will actually paint the grille and even sometimes the headlight bezels. I think it looks better sort of more factory, because you do get this little strip that kind of breaks up your solid color going on everywhere else. We have factory hubcaps here, which again, what I would do is I would take these hubcaps off and I would paint the steel wheels white, as I have done with my 1995 Buick LeSabre. I think it's a great look. I think painted steel wheels are a very cost-effective way, especially when painted, to be something different. I love the look of steel wheels. I love the functionality. I've heard lots of things about alloy wheels causing burrs in tires. I'm not sure. That's very anecdotal, but I have, you know, run into that in certain places. So I think steel wheels, while a little heavier on a car like this, you're not trying to save, you know, 6 or 7 pounds necessarily. But the factory hubcaps do look very nice nonetheless, and the silver complements the grille and the headlight areas, so it doesn't seem totally out of place or anything like that. Another thing with the Aerostar, because of all your black plastic trim, it immediately gives, yes, the whole van is white, but you have a very nice black and white contrast. And, you know, ebony and ivory, all things duality. I think the black mirrors and the cowl here, and your windshield wipers and your windows and all your molding around your windows, as well as your tires even, and your track for your sliding door and your door handles, all presented very nicely in black, and it just gives a very striking, very handsome look to this van. Let's look at the next one. Rear 3/4. Okay, this one's a little less telephoto. You don't get that sort of like magazine presentation. But I love how this is, you know, supposedly in a lot in New Jersey, yet somehow the pictures of this were taken out in a field somewhere. So either it's off the lot, or maybe they actually drove this vehicle out for a photo session, in which case it's a shame they didn't take more pictures of it, because I would love to see some more pictures of the interior. Can't even really say much about the interior, and usually I talk at length about the seats in the Aerostar, but we can see it's some sort of gray interior, and I love a gray interior. I think a gray interior is very underappreciated, especially when it's like leather. These, I'm guessing, are not leather, but my Buick LeSabre that I mentioned has a gray leather interior. My favorite Porsche 911 combination ever was the teal, that aqua 911, the 996 with a gray leather interior. I think gray is it seems so you know, obvious, I guess. You know, a lot of cloth interiors are gray or a dark gray, something of that matter. I see a lot of weird microfibers going on now in cars, but specifically a gray leather interior I think is very understated. I like it probably almost better than a black or a white interior, although a white leather interior is quite striking, especially on old Corvettes and stuff like that. But a gray interior, just really underrated, I think. So we'll go back to the rear picture again. The most striking thing here is this white bumper, and as you can see, just painting one little bumper on the front and the rear immediately changes the entire dynamic of the Aerostar, and you really see, you know, white obviously highlights it more, but any color, you really see the Aerostar in all its full grandeur and splendor, to borrow a phrase from the great Walt Clyde Frazier. Obviously you can see is the XLT model, and all the badging has been updated. No longer is it one singular badge here with the XLT integrated, and no longer is it red as we've seen on some of the classic Aerostars. Now it is 2 separate badges, which probably kind of made sense because you could just manufacture these Aerostar badges ad nauseum and then add the XLT, and it was probably cheaper to do it that way. Your Ford logo, blue oval logo here, presented very, you know, very humbly. You know, it's just a very small logo in the back just to let you know what you're working with, but not our gargantuan logo like most of the logos or badges are on cars nowadays. I think that's very tasteful. Looks like we do have a slight window tint going on here, and the paint does seem to be in immaculate condition. Really, really well preserved, nicely presented Aerostar here. Now I wonder if this was, you know, maybe some sort of fleet vehicle, and that's why it was painted white, you know, a post office vehicle, but, you know, it looks like it's never been outfitted with any sort of crazy, you know, metal guards or, you know, industrial equipment that these, you know, commercial vehicles were outfitted with. So maybe it was just, you know, came in white, and at some point they got the bumpers. Maybe even it was done at the factory. I mean, the color match looks perfect, you know. As they say, it appears to be, paint looks original, so, you know, we'll go with that. Now, of course, one thing I haven't really talked about too much is on the earlier Aerostars, the badging was actually right up front here on the front quarter panel. On my 1986, it's like that, and I believe that, you know, probably changed along with when the interior was updated somewhere around 1991, 92. And I gotta say, I really like the Aerostar badging when it's, you know, right in this location. I think it adds like almost like a sports car-like quality to it, where you're really kind of like letting people know right off the bat what you're working with. And that Aerostar badge, of course, is so iconic. But I have to say, putting it in the rear here certainly has its own, again, sort of humble quality to it. And obviously, you know, there's no mistaking the profile of an Aerostar, so you really don't need to, you know, if you need to ask, one of those types of things. Just a beautiful, beautiful van. We do see clear evidence that it is indeed a 97 because we have our last year taillights. Now, curiously, for 1997, when the Aerostar was being phased out, now as the famous story goes, it was going to be phased out after 1995, but dealerships and the factory and the corporate offices were bombarded with letters pleading with them not to discontinue the Aerostar because people liked it so much. This this section has since been removed from the Wikipedia page, and I have almost no way of knowing if this is true or not. However, I like to believe the tale, and I imagine it came from somewhere, unless there was some Aerostar fan, even more zealous than I am, who went out of his or her way to erroneously update the Wikipedia page to say that. But again, it all falls into the lore of the Aerostar. One quick thing I'll mention right here, while we're talking about design, and I don't know if I've mentioned this previously, but this is a great angle to show it at. We have a perfect rear 3/4 angle here. Look at this symmetry here between where the body meets the tailgate on your left side here. Okay, so this vertical line going down right here, and then you have a curved angle that goes into the tailgate. And conversely, on the rear, just on the opposite side, you have a perfect mirror image of the line of the tailgate meeting the taillight, and then you have this other body crease that goes around and bends to your left down the side of the body. So just really perfect symmetry there with those panel gaps integrated with the taillight. You have a little buffer of your crease here, maybe a tiny bit larger on the bottom, but still very similar. And actually, like again, this is so genius here. Even though this gap here on the bottom between your crease is a little bit larger and this one on top is a little bit smaller, well, guess what? You have this symmetry again going on with this section of the taillight being larger at the top and being smaller at the bottom. And I would say if you colored in these two lights here in amber, it would really tie the whole package together. But I gotta say, on this specific van, this 97 in white, the simple tail lights seem to sort of work on it. You know, it's this ultra minimalist Aerostar. And again, your badging has been moved to a different place in these later models, and it all sort of just works together brilliantly. So I was very excited when this popped up. Now, being at a dealership, you know, maybe they offer financing, which I should say as an aside, most credit unions and banks will give you financing on a private sale. When I learned this, it totally changed the game for me because, you know, if you want to go out and buy a car, you know, you don't need to immediately come up with the cash as long as your credit is good enough, which is a scary proposition all by itself. But I have not financed any older classic cars yet. I'm sure I will in the future. And it's good to know the option is out there. But being at a dealership, you know, maybe they offer some in-house financing. I would still think you'd probably get a better rate from something such as a credit union. Neither here nor there. The option is on the table. So there we have this beautiful, really striking, handsome, dashing 1997 Ford Aerostar. And as I drift off to sleep tonight in my humble cabin that I've been painting at, I will have lovely dreams of this Aerostar just flying through the sky and doing Aerostar things. So there you have it. Another fantastic, very enjoyable for me anyways, I hope you've enjoyed it as well, episode of Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF. And until next time, Janky do Thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.